did we print agendas?
I have mine.
I'm gonna go make copies for everybody real quick.
Yeah, welcome.
Hey.
That's one over there. Brought you a present.
Thanks.
You're still collecting on
Oh, sure.
You're an easy person
walk me
to
out.
get a
I
present
know,
for.
so wonderful, right?
We got our nice new website, but I can't pull up the code on my phone now.
You hunting for the official colors in the code?
I'm
It very well could be. That's a
like
little detail.
99% sure that I read when I read the code.
Little detail I don't recall.
The flag is our official, like,
There you go.
emblem.
Official logo or?
Yeah. And then the green and the white are our official colors.
That's awesome.
Where were they? Well, I keep laughing every time I think about you haven't read the whole code, and it's like, I haven't read the whole code. I mean, are you talking like the tax card and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is
It's
just
just-
references to other,
Yeah,
to
it's just
other
reference to
places.
ORC.
But, you know,
Oh,
keeping
yeah.
in mind that my job is to read proposed law. It's,
Well, I've had the code on my headboard for years. Yeah, that's why I'm single.
I'm not sure if that's why you're single.
Well, that's just one.
Oh, I left yours in the printer.
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I think he was gonna print some stuff off. Do you know about that? No. Wait. Oh, she did get it ready, I bet. Is this ours?
Let me see.
Becky's so efficient.
Did you get that done last week? Nice. There you go.
I guarantee you this is the agenda.
Well, there's a lot of minutes to approve.
A lot. Oh, yours?
There's yours.
Becky.
There you go.
This is what I like about meetings,
Oh, I know.
the handed stuff out.
Oh, I agree completely. You know me.
All right.
Okay. So recorder's been on 3 minutes, we're just gonna
Yeah.
start.
You'll have to,
Do you want me to do it?
yeah, you have to call the meeting order.
Okay, we are calling the meeting to order at 7:06.
6. Yeah.
And we're gonna go straight to roll call.
You'd say who's, right, it is what I was
Well-
trying to say, is like, if we couldn't instead of introducing each other, could
We-
one person just go around and say who's here?
We can all do like a quick,
Yeah, we
like who
can
you
do
are.
that. She just needs to, but
Wow.
the mayor knows she has to call the roll officially, and then we can talk about it in
Yeah, we can
orientation and
all-
stuff. So go ahead, Mary.
Do I just do,
You just call each name, and that's.
Tony Benedetti?
Here.
Okay, just my voting members, right? Or all of them?
No, call everybody.
Oh,
Oh.
we're doing roll call, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go. Now, that's
Beth
okay.
McFarland?
We need to start.
I'm gonna skip. Brady Oxender?
Here?
Man, I did that. Lisa Fidoff.
Here.
I wasn't sure if I go with the middle or not.
You can do.
And then Samuel
you can
Young.
do any.
All right, and Eric Fisher.
Yeah, here, and then Eddie, you want to call Eddie, he's not present yet.
Oh, yeah. I knew there was somebody missing.
Eddie
And Eddie Bell is not here yet, so we'll see if he's here shortly. let's go straight to the election of the chairperson and vice chairperson.
And before we jump
Yeah,
into
let's do that.
So I talked to Donna earlier today, but I don't know if everyone is up to snuff on the current.
Nobody is.
Okay, so we'll bring everybody up to snuff on what occurred at the last council meeting. So as of right now, there are of course on P and Z 5 voting members. 2 of them are already accounted for with the mayor and the councilman liaison. Brady is a continued voting member because he carries over from the other term. Now what's occurred is that per the mayor's and council's recommendation and approval, Beth McFarland is now a voting member, and I'm sorry, your name again? Samuel is also a voting member, so welcome to new voting members. Lisa is officially non-voting member. Eddie stays in his current place as a non-voting member. As of this time, officially, unofficially, Donna, because we didn't approve, council has a first reading of adding a 3rd non-voting advisory member, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So Donna, you are slotted per the mayor's eventual advisement into that position, but it has to go through 2 more readings. So Donna, of course, is here to continue. So everybody, it's public meetings, so there's no reason not for her not to come in that regard. So anyways, that's where we're at. So the voting members now officially, Beth, Brady, and Samuel, and then of course the mayor and Tony. So those are the members who will vote from this point forward. So, Mayor.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So this was mayor decides and council approves, or council decides, or how, just?
So the way that it happened was on Saturday, we had the work session with all of the applicants. We went through the whole Saturday. We went through my recommendations, and then we kind of went through all of council. And I will say, I don't know that it completely ended the same way it started. We'll say it that way. So yes,
The decision's made with the advice and consent of
Yes.
the council.
correct. So once they did not object to anything once we finally got to that point, but I did take Eric's opinion into consideration as well as all of council. So we did discuss it quite thoroughly on Saturday, made the decision Monday, after I told him I would decide Saturday, and I did not. So Monday I sent the decision to them, and then they did approve the decision. So ultimately, the discussion though was, because we did have a lot of interest in planning and zoning. You guys were not the only member, or you guys were not the only residents that applied. We actually had quite a few applicants. The hardest decision for me was, and everybody knows that I have a hard time making these decisions anyways, but one of the large projects that we're going to be dealing with is going to be the amphitheater this year. And with her being such a big part of that, how do you not have her? You, on the other hand, have been a huge help for me when it comes to all of the green space and just all of the different projects. I know I could still count on you in Minerva Flora, but you also are kind of like the balance away from me. I don't really think she is as much as you are, but I feel like having you here is a huge asset for us because you don't always see the same things that I do. So this group, we wanted somebody, one of the number one things I have said for the last year was to get somebody from the new development. So I'm going to be blunt and say this. He could have had the worst resume in the world. He was coming. Samuel was coming on board because we felt like we just really wanted that new person. The reason that he went into that role, straight to the role of voting, and it was highly sought after for somebody from the new development to be in this position. It was not that we didn't like you guys or anything of that sort. It was strictly, I think Tony is the first one to say it, he won that just by his address. And I don't mean it that way. I mean, we really appreciate you being here, but we also have fought to try to get somebody from the new development to be a voice.
There were several people on council that felt that.
Yes, there were several people on council. So like I said, the names kind of rolled around. And then it was really a matter of, there was a big push for, I'm going to use kind of, I think what some people used was new blood. There was not any issues with either one, I don't believe. It was just more of new. With some of the new things with the amphitheater and things I felt like Beth is going to be instrumental in some of the new projects that we have coming up. So that's kind of how the whole thing went. It wasn't that we thought that you weren't capable and able, and you guys have been on here for so long. We also didn't want to lose that. So that was my input. one of the things to not keep us here till 10 o'clock is from council, and I will be the one to say this, and Tony can definitely agree with me. They wanted to make sure that if you remain, and I know we haven't done this yet, but if you remain a chairperson, and this would go to anybody else in the room, if they had an issue adding a fifth member, or a sixth person, 3 non-voting, 3, the 5 voting, whatever. They didn't want anybody to feel as if, especially the voting people, that adding another person was going to cause more conflict, and I don't want to say conflict in that way, but more of not being able to get things done.
They're worried about an unwieldy meeting, but I think they
Yes.
left it, quite frankly, they left it a lot, they wanted to hear what your opinion was and adding
Correct.
the non-advisory. The council members specifically said, well, the more the merrier, kind of, I mean, they're like, as long as Brady is good with it, we want people to take part in the activity.
Would you agree with that? That was kind of the census, and especially from 2 or 3, they were very specific wanting,
I think you're in favor of having another person as long as no one here objects.
correct.
I just like to say, I'm not criticizing, critiquing, it makes complete sense. I just was wondering.
No,
that
absolutely, and
Yeah,
Decision, where the power is in the decision.
yeah, I think,
So-
and
I think it's fair for everybody to know.
Yeah, and I think quite frankly, everybody appreciates everyone's service. I think there's kind of a push to get, change the voting members up to give other people a chance to vote, especially if there's ability to keep long-term institutional people on board in the non-advisory role. And I think that's really where council was coming from. They wanted to be more inclusive, and I think they've achieved that to a lot.
Right.
So,
But that was also the big push to adding the additional member, because losing one, and I don't want to say this, flip a coin, because you both bring so much to the table, and you guys have been involved for way before I was ever involved. So being able to get insight from you guys on different projects that maybe we've dropped and not, and again, just some of the things that you guys do, it was, who do you pick, Donna or Lisa? And that was really the hardest part in most of it, because we didn't have that, but it was,
we solved that.
that's the way we decided to solve it, is we're just gonna throw a name and move on. So that was kind of how that went. As long as everybody's on board with it, I don't know, Brady, I know that they were assuming that you were gonna stay the chair, and I don't wanna step on toes because you had been here the longest, which I realize hasn't been that long. But they really wanted to make sure that you felt you could run a meeting and not feel bombarded.
Yeah, no, that's,
Are you okay? Okay.
absolutely.
Because we're gonna take that back to them, so they will finish the readings and get the third person approved.
So council's deciding chair, or we're deciding?
No,
We are.
you will now decide the election of the chairperson and vice chairperson. And the mayor, as a voting member, you may make the motion to.
The
Oh, yeah.
council just deciding on.
The member, to add a
per
seat.
person.
Yeah,
We're just, so
To
we have
add
an
the-
official seat at the dais, essentially.
Okay.
yes, that's the only thing they're deciding. So as far as that goes, then, I would like to nominate Brady for the chair.
Need a second. The voting member has a second.
Oh, yeah, voting member has to second.
Sorry,
You're,
forgot.
It's all right.
Second.
It's gonna take a minute.
yeah, we're all gonna be like,
Yeah, it's gonna take a minute. It's all right.
Tony seconded it, okay.
All right. And then
All those in favor?
Uh,
Opposed? Extensions? Anybody? Anybody not okay? Okay. And then as far as vice chairperson, I'm just gonna ask the 2 of you.
Well, actually, I would just make a suggestion, since you have 2 new members who are gonna be getting used to their
Exactly.
roles. I would say, quite frankly, you can work as a vice chair, someone will nominate you, and then when someone feels comfortable, they can jump back as they see how things work.
Okay.
Part of training the vice chair into that position,
I mean, I'm fine with that, it doesn't matter.
yeah. So we just need to nominate,
I'll be the mayor.
Yay! No.
and just need a second.
Second.
There we go. All right.
All those in favor?
So,
Do I get to oppose it? Just kidding.
Do we, all in favor?
Yeah, all in favor.
Okay.
All right. So at this point then, turn it back over to you now as chair again. Thank you very much. And you can go through the minutes and the agenda if you like, and then we'll continue.
So we're just approving?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes? Do we do them one at a time, or can we do them in a block?
I think you can do them in a batch if you want, unless there's people have specific issues they want to yank out.
Sure, so, these are meetings that have already happened, and the goal is to make sure that they accurately reflect, what almost none of us were in. So,
Everyone's able to vote, so yeah.
yeah, so I would just ask everybody to take a good look at them, when they get a chance, and we're gonna try and pull pull things that are not done yet and try and, you know, work through them in the future. But with that, is there a motion to approve as a block the February, March, April, May, and July minutes?
I just had a couple things after looking over them before we approve.
Yeah.
If that's appropriate. Is this,
Yep.
can I even do this?
Well, if there's something, because you were
You were
on-
there.
You were there, so go ahead and speak up.
Well, I think one question is workshopped. I've seen it a couple times in the minutes. Is that
We have,
Term
the first
over?
meeting is the meeting of planning and zoning, and the second meeting we have is a work session,
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of work
a
session.
work session.
My reading generally is when it says they workshop such and such an issue,
Yeah.
that means discussed it without coming to a resolution.
a, okay,
If you're trying to figure out what
okay.
Yeah.
it means in reading that.
Yeah, I've not seen that before. I think the only other thing, I had these marked, but they wouldn't stay on the phone, so. The only other thing I had was when we did the vote on the school, it's a Zoom meeting. I don't know if this needs to be mentioned, but we were under the impression that it was going to a vote of the council. We, I think, recommended or approved or whatever, and then it was supposed to go to council, and we found out the next day that it didn't actually go. So should we have that?
Was that
In the
officially brought
minutes.
up in the meeting?
Well, we were told in the meeting that the next
Yes,
step
and that's
would be
what's,
for
that's,
council to approve.
and I'm the one that said that.
And
And
that
so
didn't happen.
it's reflected, I'm sure, in the minutes, it's definitely on the recording.
It is not, I did not see
So
it in the
we
minutes.
we can direct Becky to put something in there, she can
Okay.
re-listen to the recording and put that in there to make sure it's properly reflected.
Okay,
So that's the April 15th?
yes,
Okay, so then is there a motion to approve the February, March, May, and July minutes as a block?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Anybody opposed? Okay, seeing none, those minutes will stand approved. And then we will ask for a revision of the April 15th, and we can approve those at the next meeting, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
No, I was trying to see if I saw it.
So now we're moving on to village planning section.
Yes, sir. All right, so you've done your P and Z organization, because that's what that was for, so we can scratch that one off. Couple of these are just gonna be overview, we have a couple more in-depth ones, there's a quick overview for new members, so this will be a good review for everyone else. P and Z duties, this is from our code, let me update it. And I'm just gonna kind of go through my stuff here.
This is only said,
Well, no, this has all been approved. The only thing that got added, in that was, G. Sorry, I forgot my laptop, I got my notes. All right, so for those of you that know or perhaps don't know, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a board that exists to oversee planning and zoning as it relates to development and growth within a municipality within the state of Ohio. All right, the Ohio Revised Code sets forth the guidelines for this board in statute. Now, essentially what that means is when you become a village, when you incorporate yourself, and if you don't already have a charter, you are going to be a creature of statute, and therefore everything that the state code says applies to you until such time that the village adopts a charter to change things around. In that sense, this is a statutory village, and so it specifically states that the commission shall be composed of 5 members, as we've discussed a little bit tonight, who reside in the incorporated area of the village and shall include the mayor, a member of council, elected for the remainder of their term, and 3 citizens of the village appointed the mayor. Those are the voting members, and that's set down by statute, which is why we cannot change it and why we added the advisory members to expand our commission. Once, perhaps in the future, when the village picks up a charter, they can change that up and they can have 7 members, 6 members, whatever the heart desires in that regard. All right? And so that's essentially where we're at. Your duties are in front of you, and essentially the code of the village incorporates this. And so these are the things that your duties are to review, and that involves planning purposes. When we talk, and this village is, you know, has a few things that happen over the years, one of them being the subdivision, and when that came through, that had to go through planning and zoning. And those items had to get approved. Zoning changes will have to come through you. And in basis, the zoning is the underlying law that's been around for, you know, 150 years that allows municipalities, you know, state-based, to go ahead and set up zones of use and rules that guide those. And so pretty much keeps people from being able to put smokestacks in your backyard or doing something like a butcher shop and, in a residential home without approval. You know, and there's a lot of case law behind that, and it's a whole subject matter unto itself. But at the end of the day, the village has zoning code, which is, basis of zoning law, and then we enforce that as a independent city here within the state of Ohio. So one of the items that this village, and this will kind of delve into some other items on the agenda that this village has been overseeing, is green space plans, things of that nature. The facility discussion to some degree, is handled here. But anything with public lands, anything with the right of way, pathways, any of those things that involve planning and development come through here. If somebody out on the street, wants to, have their, if it's a commercially zoned item and they want to change that, they would come back before this body and ask for a zoning change or variance in that regard, which jumps us into the other duty. The village does not have a board of zoning appeals here, or a BZA. A lot of municipalities, especially charter ones, have a separate body, which is a quasi-judicial form, and it jumps, when people go through that process to get a variance or to appeal the ruling of a zoning officer that they didn't like, it goes from there to court. Here, it's a little different. It comes before this body, say, what we see, I've seen a lot of lately are fence variances. Those come before this body, and you'll make your recommendation to council, and council then has a process by which to approve the variance at one of their meetings or deny it. And your recommendation carries weight at that meeting. So that's one of the duties of this body. So it used to be, a little history for those of you, it used to be that a lot of, the mayor can obviously speak to this because she had to come through to this body for approval of her fence. This body used to go through administratively, and instead of administratively, they would see everybody's applications for simple permits, no matter what they were, which sucked up a lot of time. It isn't actually the usual way of doing business. Part of that is history, and they didn't have staff for a lot of the time period here, so they ran it through that process in order to get things approved. And over the course of time, especially since I've been here, which was in 2016 when I came on board, we started to change that process out, and councils went along with that. And now the majority of permits are administrative unless they need a variance, obviously. Anything of public nature, will still come to this body. So you still have, a process in which you will speak to items that, are changes to, applications, for example, for the school. The intention of that came to this body for what they did over the elementary school, and they recently submitted for the middle school. And so you will, depending on timing, you will see that here in February, first or second meeting. So that just got submitted today, and we're making some determination on what date that comes through. And so essentially it's basically the overview. I, as staff, am not a voting member. I work at the behest of the mayor and support this commission, the council, as well as any other commissions or committees that I'm assigned to assist. So as of this time, I'm not a full-time member of the village. I'm a part-time member. But this is my fourth municipality I've worked for in my 20-year public service career. So it's been interesting, just like all the rest. So, and that's basically the overview. Anytime there are questions, both of the members and any of the other members are always able to reach out, always able to call, and happy to answer any questions and assist anyone with whatever they'd like to know. So Lisa knows that. So, as an example, and everyone else, quite frankly. So we appreciate it. I will, unless anyone has any questions at this time, I'll jump to some other items. So I don't know if any of the new members have specific questions.
Is that the first three things on your agenda?
Definitely the first two. I didn't put pond wetland information on there, I don't recall what we were doing with that, I wasn't on my.
That was the stuff that she had
Oh,
sent and
thank
asked
you,
Becky
okay,
to put on.
very good, so that was not my thing, we'll get to that. All right, next two things are kind of zoning, green space planning overview. We can talk about that, and that might be a better thing for the work session for all the members, you know, to kind of discuss when we get to it. I've got a higher priority item that we've got to kind of discuss that goes to both items this evening. And that has to do with our amphitheater project. So we're gonna have to kind of get started on that. So, again, for the new members, and I'll clean up the grant process here. And Donna gets a good deal of credit for this. And for maybe there at the end of last year, well, at one point last year, we had COVID interrupted, so I can't even recall when we officially submitted anything.
Oh, about a year ago, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while, so, all right. So, the state has the ability to grant money for a cultural facilities project, and if you've got something that kind of fits the criteria. I wrote one of these when I was with the city of Pataskala for their police station. They had a theater on the third floor, and we were able to get a significant portion of money for that, and it was a very similar process. So I was happy to see us get this, and as I said, Donna submitted, and we kind of followed up from the staff standpoint and kept that ball moving, and they got a little delayed due to COVID, but at the end of the day, it was made known to us, and thanks for that, Brady, because I don't know if we ever got an official letter from anyone. It was kind of a weird thing. So Brady let us know, and then I contacted the staff. We've basically been through the first 4 items on this list, okay, so out of the 8. So if you look at it, we've gone through number 4, and I contacted the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, the OFCC. They are the ones that oversee this part of the process. They get the money allotted to them. The legislators get this all packed into a bill. And when I called, I talked to one of their staff members, and we kind of went over it. He's like, "Yep, here I see you got $100,000, and here's what you got to do." So he took me through the process at that point. And essentially, what we're going to have to do is, council's involved obviously too, because they have to allot a certain amount of money appropriate it for the project, and it's basically a reimbursement project, but they'll reimburse us $100,000 for the project. Now, one of the expectations is that there's a 50% match, so $50,000. Now, part of that $50,000, as I was talking with the mayor, can be an in-kind type stuff. So, for example, the mayor and myself have salaries. Part of our salaries get dedicated to the project, because obviously we're overseeing from a management standpoint. The land itself has a value under their rules and guidelines. We can ascertain what that valuation is. So if we can value the land at $7 grand or $8 grand or $10 grand, which I'm sure we can, that gets added in. And if Ms. McFarland is so willing, her architectural per hour fee, if she wants to, we're hoping that she'll also help us with this, can also be an in-kind contribution through P&Z. So we can do that as well, since you're a professional in that field. And so essentially, I think you can get to $25,000 or $30,000 in kind pretty quick. And so council's outlay is $20,000 cash for essentially getting $100,000. That's a pretty good return on investment, no matter how you look at it. So essentially, you're going to look at $120,000, $125,000 amount of money to spend cash-wise on a project out there at the amphitheater. From this point forward, we have to fill out a kind of formal application for the FCC, for the OFCC, which from a staff standpoint we'll do, but we have to fill in some key parts of it. One of those key parts is obviously we need to have a plan, right? So this body, through our process, is going to have to come up with a plan and recommendation. We have to have, at the end of the day, stamped drawings from somebody. And Beth, if you do stamp drawings, wonderful. But if somebody else, we have to hire that out. That's fine too. Either way, we have to have proper drawings to submit for the plan, because at the end of the day, for $120,000, we have to bid it. We have to go through the bidding process. So once we have it'll take this body, in my estimate, even at best speed, probably I would say 60 to 90 days to probably get something done, right? And then, in that we can concurrently speak to council so that they have, their aspects. They they have to put money into the account, which we can verify, which they get, basically that becomes proof, and it's an appropriation. And that becomes proof that the funds are available. And we would submit all of our stuff to the OFCC as part of our application. And then at such time, they would approve us, going down the list there, and we would we could start our project at that point. We would bid it at the same time, we put it out for bid, so we knew what obviously the final dollar amount is in this part of this process. But at the end of the day, we would get our approval during that time frame and move forward. So that's basically where we're at with it. We'll have to, as a body, kind of go through what we need to do, and maybe at the next meeting, or maybe in everybody's individual capacity, they can go out, kind of look at it, but we can provide maps and we can start seriously talking about the project. Obviously, for those of you who've seen the amphitheater, there's obviously a significant component of tree removal. There's gonna be obviously some groundwork that's gotta be done. The pillars are probably the only savable aspect of that amphitheater, which are doable, and we've got a contractor lined up who specializes in that, so he can give us an idea of price, but we can start lining up pieces of the project that we know are gonna cost money, and then, we'll have to, decide what scale that whole thing's gonna be, and, stage-wise, is there gonna be a, like Tony's talked about, is there gonna be something for the projector, all that stuff is doable with that. And it has to meet, some historical significance. This is obviously a historical piece. This is, this area is on the National Historic Registry already, so we already easy qualify there. And it's a matter per their application, or per their approval process, to show how we're gonna, it's just a lot of narration, how we're gonna provide culture, through per their definition at the site, which can be a lot of different things, quite frankly. So it can be movie nights, a form of culture, stage for kids, or a form of culture, plays, a lot of things can be done there. I mean, that part's not gonna be hard, it's a matter of filling in the blanks, but the biggest thing is gonna be determining the scope of work, getting your plans done, and then getting costs for that and moving forward with that. So that's basically where we're at with that.
And so the two things that we want to remember on that, speaking from a state politics standpoint, is number one, whatever we do, we need to call it phase 1 or phase A. Because if they think they've finished the project, they're not gonna think about us anymore. And also $150,000 is not enough to finish anything. So if we call it phase A, that costs exactly $150,000, and we can, encumber those funds as quickly as possible. This process starts again in now under a year,
That's a good
because
point.
they're 6 months behind.
Yeah.
And so everybody is behind the ball right now who would traditionally ask for funds. So we're gonna be in a good situation if we're thinking small on phase 1 and rushing toward what we can call phase 2, that again, that will be, because they delayed passing the bill that funds this by about 6 months, the whole process now doesn't shift 6 months, we're just 6 months shorter on a 2-year process.
I like that, because you can tie that, that's a really good suggestion, you can tie that into a number of things at the lake that extend out the original historic significance of what used to be here from the amusement park standpoint. People have talked about the gazebo, you can talk about a boardwalk,
So, yeah,
everything
we
that
could
was
call this-
applicable is there.
Yeah, we
That's
could call
good.
this, lake rehabilitation phase 1, the amphitheater.
Yeah.
And then you move into phase 2, and it gets the feeling that we're continuing to work on things, and that they didn't give us enough money to finish anything.
Okay.
And with the legislators that we have in office right now, they obviously have proven themselves helpful through no small part of yours in working with Rep. Lightbody, so.
Yeah. That's a great idea, okay, very good.
So
Yep.
we need to figure out, what the overall scope of this phase 1 is going to be. Thinking big but acting small.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm fairly confident you can get your area down there cleared, you can get a stage rebuilt, you can get, you can do all of that within 120 grand down there. I'm fairly confident of that. Jumping to the next stages, yeah, once you start getting into things like, well, we need something for people to sit on, we need plumbing, right? Now you're getting into something a little bit more expensive that gets into these later phases, right? I know we can do the basics to start, and then we can obviously include that in the scope, for longer term, and maybe get a couple nice renderings,
Right, and we're gonna need to know, big picture, what we want that to look like ultimately, so that we don't, bite ourselves in this first stage. If we know we're going to want plumbing run, we need to be mindful when we're doing other things. If we're gonna want electric run,
Yep.
you know, we need to be, even if we're not gonna have a projector and lights right now, this would be the time to run the electric before
Absolutely.
we've already fixed something and have to drill through it, so.
Yep, good call.
That
Okay.
will be on, I guess, maybe the next work session, we'll
Yeah, we'll start
looking at the amphitheater.
delving into it.
But
So,
it's cool and exciting, and again, thanks to Donna for doing all the hard work and getting the funding.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
that was pretty awesome. So, yeah, no, that's good. Once we start jumping into other things, it'll be more exciting, especially if we can continue the project. So, that's essentially it in a nutshell. I wanted to make sure we got that out there front and center, as it's both like a green space discussion item, and, plays into our overall park development. So it's a good thing.
So is it $100,000 in the grant, and then we just have to match
We do,
50,000?
we do, correct.
Of that?
We do, which can be cash, or as I said, can be a combination of cash and straight face in kind, right?
And then that makes the overall first phase one project 150,000?
Yeah, and I would guess that depending on how we work that out with council, if council wants to throw a full 150 at it, that's their call. I would guess that, it's, again, I would guess we can easily get that down to 125, 120. So we throw in 20, 25, just depends what council's appetite is, right? So I know straight face wise, I can say I've got certain things I can do in kind, right? As with any project, sometimes councils don't wanna, put that much of a match in, it just depends, so. But yes, so I would say a safe budget is 120, 125. But yes, I just wanted to make sure we got that out there, because in order to meet these kind of timing requirements, to get something done and be able to get to construction still within this year, we will reasonably have to get something done here by the end of March, I think, as far as this body is concerned. We can start bringing this up to council so they can, because they're just gonna need to appropriate money, as part of it for proof of funds, and that's not difficult, but the bidding and everything's gonna eat up time, and, my hope is by late summer, we would be able to do work on that, And again, it's not terribly hard work, we're not building a building, so I think we could actually have a project that's done before winter of this year. I think it can all be done within this year's timeframe, so.
Yeah, especially if it's reimbursed, you don't have to wait for the state to actually cut you a check.
Exactly, which is nice. So, all right, that's what I have for this evening. We can get into, more green space stuff, but like I said, this is a major green space item. And, I'm sure as we move forward, we can talk about the things we left off from last year, and, we'll obviously have many more discussions concerning basketball court and things of that nature. Lisa, did you want to talk about the pond wetland stuff on the agenda?
Yeah. Well, included in your packet is information from two different companies that I contacted, and I'm gonna apologize for different things. I think one I met in September, and they just came out, I don't know, just after Christmas, I guess, and kind of looked at what we were talking about, so I think I probably gave a little bit of different information. But I just wanted to see kind of what I'd come up with for the pond area, or potentials. And I also haven't had really a chance to look over and see what the differences are in the two things. I have not heard about the grant, that should be the end of January that I hear something. I did discuss, I have a contact with Flo, who seems to be really happy to give us free stuff. Even though she's not in our watershed, but she keeps calling and saying, hey, you want this? She offered another 1/4 acre of wildflower mix. I have a 1/4 acre in my garage that could be put someplace, that never did get put out. And she's offering another 1/4 acre if we'd like it. It sounds like it could actually be used, maybe not right next to the water on that pond, but up from it. She's also offering trees. This is from, is it Green Columbus, I think. But this year, because of COVID, they're only doing trees in 50 tree bundles. So if we got free trees, and she's talking like maybe 18 inches high, they're not huge. We'd have to get 50 of them. And the other thought is that there's a plant sale through Let me check. Soil and water, I think it's soil and water. So you could get some smaller things, we can get some seeds, we could get some plants through them for less money. So those are a couple options. And those are, I think the trees, I need to let her know, if we were doing the 50 pack, I need to let her know by February 5th.
So they would give us 50 trees?
Yeah.
What kind of
Well, yeah, that's my next question.
There's a, I did not send that.
Because that is important.
Yeah, they're all natives.
Okay, that's great.
A choice of quite a few actually, and I guess basically what they're saying is that you can pick what you want, but if they don't have availability, you may not get it.
Okay.
She's got red maple, silver maple,
Why silver, what?
and yeah,
That
and I don't think we're allowed to
That's,
do
no,
that.
we don't even, that's not, no one does that.
It must be a good native.
Yes.
River birch, hackberry.
This all means nothing to me. He's looking at me like,
He's just glazed over.
I'm like, yeah, silver maple, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, that'll, that's
Shrubs.
a nasty tree. We have a few.
Anything that would be good cover for the basketball area?
Once they get big enough.
Well, how about-
Yeah, if they're 18 inches, but the early trees, I mean, some of those species are fast growers that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Some of them will grow faster than others. I mean,
Well-
we can look through, if you can get, let's do this. If you can, is there a way for you to email that list? Is that an email?
I should be able to.
Can you email that to everybody? Yeah, that,
So basically what she's saying is she used an oats as an example. She said the first couple of years, not much. The third year, you're gonna start seeing some growth, and by probably 4 through 8, you're really gonna see significance. She did send me a picture, I'll send that as well. She's been active at the Clinton Como Park, and she showed me pictures from, is it 08? I mean, they're full-size trees.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
not big around, but
Absolutely.
they're full-size. They
Yeah,
took
they
a
grow.
meadow that was just grass and planted these, I think they're all oaks, and it's a forest.
okay,
So it takes a little bit of time.
but they can do it. Yeah, we understand that. Well, and that's the thing, we, as you know, for those who were there, when you were here, we had landscape architect.
Yeah.
We do have an example plan of what to do around,
Yeah.
you know, one of these areas.
Yeah.
So this is how, quite frankly, this is how you achieve that to some degree without spending a ton of, you know, village money on,
Yeah.
from Blending Gardens or someone like that.
Yeah.
So I don't, personally, Steph, I don't see the harm in getting your trees, but we do wanna tell them which ones we want. I think that's
Yeah,
imperative, so I think
but you
that's
have
good.
to, you have to take 50.
That's fine,
So.
you have a lot of
we-
space, add 50 trees too.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think that's a problem.
One of the, I was kind of picturing them sort of being popped around different areas, but one of the things she said is, you do a stand of trees, just do
Yeah, I agree.
an oak forest, or Eddie was talking about evergreen. I don't think any of these are evergreen, but just do a nice stand of those.
I think, yeah, I think, why don't you see some of the list around, and then everybody can have a little bit more of a open discussion at the
And I'll
next
go
couple
through
meetings.
the 2 plans that I took you. I know the second one was, we started getting into like clearing those alders and then spraying them. And we just started, it kind of grew as we talked about it, and they were doing just segments of different things, adding on to it. But the other thing I'd say is we are now officially a Master Gardener project. So we could potentially have a lot of help between residents and Master Gardeners to do some of the work that they're talking about, taking out invasives or planting trees or plants or, prepping the soil. So it could be that we do a lot of it ourselves.
Agreed? So,
But, so the question is, I need to let her know by February 5th about the trees.
okay,
I just send it around and we'll just
we'll just have
just
to,
decide before then.
I think so, yes.
Don't wait for a response from me. I think it's great, get all 50, but I couldn't tell you the difference between any of them.
Do they plant them or do we have to?
We're gonna plan on-
Yeah.
Lisa does.
Okay.
But
I'm
you
just
know,
kidding.
they're, well, I think they're probably like, if you saw the trees that I put out in the Facebook page for people to come pick them up, or residents.
They're like
I mean,
Arbor
they were
Day trees,
probably
right?
For what?
I got like a set of 10 from the Arbor people, the Arbor Day people, whatever.
Yeah,
When I moved into one of my first house.
yeah.
So yeah, use those. I
I
think
mean,
the same
they're-
size.
I think 50's a lot, but they probably be pretty easy to plant.
That's,
Yeah,
How
they're-
big are
18 inches.
they? 18.
Yeah, they're gonna be easy to plant.
Well, I think these might be bigger though. These may be 3 or 4 feet.
Oh,
The
really?
free ones, the ones you pay for, I think are.
Yes, the pen to pay for a little bit more than
We'll
mature.
see.
So yeah, but I would say you get 50 free trees, we got plenty of green space to try things out there.
But we can also get, we can get 50 of a few different kinds.
Yeah, we don't have to order the, do we have, to? It's 50 of one kind?
We're not limited to just 50, right?
Well, you can get more than 50,
Huh?
but each kind you have to take 50.
Oh wait, that was my misunderstanding, we don't get to pick and choose, we gotta take 50.
You can't do 10, 10, 10, you need to
Ah,
do 50
okay,
one
now I
time, okay.
understand. Sorry, I was misunderstanding.
So what they typically do, my understanding is, when COVID's not around, is sometimes she'll take a few different communities and say, well, you don't need 50, but why don't we do 25 here, 25 here?
I like that, that's good.
But because of COVID, she's trying to keep people from, getting together and mixing things up, and so for this year, it's
50.
50.
Well-
Now, can we work something out with another community? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know what else she's given them to this year too. So, but 50 is 50, and if you can do it each year, right?
Yeah.
You can do it each year, you can take a slow grower this year, and you can add in some fast growers next couple of years, and everything will be caught up by the similar size in a few years' time, so. That's one strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
what company, what nursery or who is that with?
That's with Green Columbus.
Oh, okay.
Let me,
Because I was gonna say also, not to throw a monkey wrench into this idea, but as another option, Russell Tree Experts has a tree planting program that they like to partner with nonprofits and villages, and they plant them
Oh, that'd be good, because we spend a lot of money on them.
with them. Oh, well then, they should come up. No, I saw it on there, I was looking up something on trees and I saw it on their website, I couldn't pull it up on my phone, but, that they they have a program out there. I don't know how many trees is the minimum though, so we have to look into that. Because if they plant them, it's kinda nice.
Maybe it's 50.
I'm sorry, I'm not finding it. But
That's okay, whenever you
I think
find
it's
it.
Green Columbus. She's with the Flow group, the Friends of the Lower Olentangy Watershed. But she just loves the situation here and the possibilities. I mean, we're talking about, if you wanted to make your community, if you want to say where the park is, just go with the natural or the native or, that's, she said you can have a little nature preserve there. Minerva Park Nature Preserve.
Lisa, was this, jumping back to your mad scientist quote here,
Yeah.
was this was for the pond over here in the reserve, that's the little shallow pond area?
Yeah, the one
Okay.
we were planning to work.
What happened to our,
Lily,
yes,
The
the
lily pond?
lily pond, thank you.
Yes,
We got a $3,000 for that, or did we not?
I haven't found out.
Okay,
That's
that was
the end
the
of
question.
January.
Talking about.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure of, my own memory.
Okay, so she's with Green Columbus. Seedling trees, 6 inches to 24 inches tall, I take it back. Shipped in quantities of 50. According to availability and cost, it says deadline is February 5th.
Okay.
Okay, if you have a list, you can
Yeah.
send that, a list of the trees, you can
Yeah.
send that out, and then
Yeah.
we'll just see if we can't do an email chain.
Okay.
And we've got a working group before then, right?
Yep.
And council won't need to weigh in if we're talking about free stuff, right?
No.
So let's do that, let's try and
Okay.
have everybody take a look before the next meeting, and then at the next meeting, we'll put that on the agenda.
yeah, we have a meeting February 3rd.
So, okay, if I can just forward her email to me, does that sound good?
Yes.
Forward to y'all,
Yes.
then you get all the information. Okay.
You have the email for the new members, right? 'Cause I-
They have theirs, yeah.
Okay.
It'll just be the first, his will be syoung@minervapark.org.
Okay, what we'll do is this time.
Yeah, we can
we'll
forward as
re-forward
soon
once
as-
we get it.
yeah.
So, yeah, make sure,
B McFarlane,
yeah,
is it
if you wanna do it.
McFarlane
Okay.
@minervapark.org.
My login wasn't accepted.
What's that?
My email address and stuff wasn't accepted.
It wasn't.
To do that, yeah, there's something you have to do to get it on there. Let me see if I have the instruction, I know I do on an old email.
Well, even the instructions that you had that you sent me a couple months ago were not, they didn't work on a Mac.
Oh. Okay.
Did you do some finagling?
I did, and I was able to get to
Oh,
where I
that's
can
what he has.
now send and receive on my phone, and I can receive on my computer, but I can't send on my computer, so that's fun.
Using Outlook?
No, using the Apple Mail,
Okay,
like
Apple,
that.
gotcha.
See, I don't have it on my Mac, I just have it on my phone and on my laptop.
Oh. I sent something to you asking about, what did council come up with for their priorities for us? Do we know that?
Right, that was gonna be my,
I'm sorry.
well, no, I'm glad you said. We had, at the end of, toward the end of last year, we had submitted our, green space planning
Oh,
wish list with a request that they would review and hopefully rank what we should be moving forward on, what we should be focusing on. And I know that, I think it was put on the agenda, but I'm not sure that I remember hearing any, or much discussion about it.
Well,
I think
we
it put-
had a community committee meeting last night, and that got, the lakes took up, when you're talking about that, took up most of the time. I would, well, I'm not sure what the next step for planning and zoning would be right now with regards to the green space plan. I know
Well-
that, I don't think anybody, I think everybody on council was, you
Everything in
know,
the budget.
like what they had seen.
They,
I think
they
that's what-
appropriated all of the parkland
They
funds.
did, okay, so that's right, so there's a significant amount of money, they appropriated all the parkland fund that was gotten from MI, so it's appropriated into a line item. Now,
Okay.
I think,
I
for
don't
further,
know that it's in council.
it is, but essentially, depending on, if it's appropriated, the mayor can make a PO under the limitation for any particular project. Now, larger projects require council's approval, so there's both, right? So, there's things that are
The
simple.
only thing the mayor can approve is up to $3,000.
Correct, but there's plenty of things that can be purchased for
Right.
$3,000 here and there that the mayor could approve. That's just one example of what could be done. Obviously, for larger scale projects, like i.e., doing that one section we talked about over on the, by phase 3 by the lake, where you wanted to turn it into more of an active field area, right? That's gonna take more than $3,000.
Yeah, putting a pavilion there.
Yes, that's gonna take a little bit of money, but doable, right? I mean, it's just a matter, I think it's a matter of making a recommendation from this body up to council, what you'd like to see done, and then
Sure.
it's up to council to make an approval of
So
the PO.
if we gave
I would
them a
say-
very rough draft and they came back and said, that looks,
Right,
Unobjectionable.
like you said, the money's been appropriated, so
Yes.
it's sitting
Right.
there. And the small things that are on the list are just need her
Right.
approval.
Yes,
The bigger projects are the ones, and like I said, there wasn't any pushback on anything.
Okay.
No, except,
which one?
they were saying they did not have much motivation on a bathroom, correct me if I'm wrong, they did not have much motivation for a bathroom over the basketball court.
Well, that'll change people
I
on
think,
stuff.
when I say that, and that's where I brought up something that wasn't doesn't have plumbing, bringing up the
Right.
issue of having some kind of a temporary, like a portage on, something that you could, service like a porta potty. But that is the one thing that they weren't interested in spending that type of money on
okay.
a bathroom.
So essentially, you could do other things and.
Well, and right, I don't think that this group is going to be able to solve the basketball court.
No,
And
that's a different
so-
issue.
Right, so I don't want to,
You don't wanna dip into that money.
But nobody
Yeah.
seemed to have an issue whatsoever with the Lily Pond, nobody had an
Right.
issue with the park benches and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no pushback on, our forest of,
Yeah.
sunflowers, like, there
Yeah.
was not any pushback on really anything that
No.
I would consider. The only thing I remember them really saying was the bathrooms. They
Okay,
did
so
not have
here's-
interest.
Here's what I would like to do then, at the next meeting, let's do a review
Mhm.
of what that was. Eric, we can get the big map
Yep,
out
yep.
again. And for the new members, we'll walk through what the previous commission had come up with as far as a starting point for green space planning. It mostly focuses on, well, a lot of it focuses on the 4 ponds in the new section. Figure out what we wanna do with those, and then this group can start to prioritize, you know, pull low-hanging fruit and see what we can get done quickly and easily, and then look at, you know, bigger picture items.
Yeah.
So at the next meeting, we can review all of that so that we can move forward. We can start talking about the amphitheater in more specifics. We'll figure out what we wanna do about 3 trees.
Yep.
And then I would also ask folks to think about anything else that you would like to try and get done.
That's
Personally-
why I go to new business.
Well, yeah, I mean, am I going too fast?
No, you're good.
Well, that's what I, well, segue into it is that we've seen the, a lot of planning stuff being talked about, but the zone, we're back to the zoning issues, that's what's near and dear to my heart. And I think for you, what I would like to see happen, as we have a planning section of the meeting and then have a zoning, and just going through our code book, and you've seen all the, but what I would say to you is pick a spot you want, like the parking, this is all, seems maybe the parking isn't as important to address right now, but there's a code that says you can't park in the village after dark.
Right.
And there's just so many things in our code book that no one has ever taken the time to go through. And maybe the parking isn't top priority for us, but there are things in there, that.
Like you're not allowed to feed ducks, but then we also have a duck feeding area?
Well, yeah.
Feeding the waterfowl, yeah.
The thing about the code is if you, spend the time to read through it, there's so much. Right now, thinking about it, there's so many different things that I saw going through it that aren't right.
So let me just ask this question, does what Tony just said interest anybody except for me, Tony, and Eric?
No.
Wait till people get into it, this, you get it.
Okay,
Get some
because,
interesting
and
stuff.
I only say that because if we were the ones interested, then we could do your own research and bring stuff to the group. If not, then yeah, why don't everybody, if you wanna take, now, there is a legislative committee, right?
Correct.
That would be handling a whole revamp, but if there are things that have to do with zoning specifically that we would like to recommend to council that be changed, I think that's within our purview.
If I may offer, I think the code is one of those dry but important aspects of, obviously the function of a municipality and enforcement, right? I would say if there are specific items, just to keep things rolling, much like we found in the past, you put on the agenda, hey, want to discuss
Swimming
code
pools.
about X, yeah, just start the discussion on something that's problematic to anyone, it doesn't matter, because some people may not have an interest in it, but that's okay, that's part of the fun. Just to keep, because if you try to go through, it is immensely mind-numbing and time-consuming to try to do, this is the reason no one does it, right? Municipalities just fix things as they go, because to redo whole code, rather than borrow from someone else's code, which is how a lot of municipalities start out, is a horrible adventure in and of itself. You need to pick what you like, and you can, if you stick to it over the years, you'll fix your code within a couple of years time frame the way you want to see it done. And it's easier to take bite-sized pieces than trying to eat the whole turkey right at one time. Because there's too much, quite frankly, there's too much to do for this body on very practical stuff. You have a lot to look over this year, and we'll be bringing more things to you. You've got your things in front of you regarding the amphitheater is an exciting project, that's gonna suck up your time, right? You're gonna have a number of other green space items that are gonna suck up your time. You're gonna have your standard, you're gonna have variance hearings, right? They're coming. right? Especially when we get to warmer weather, you're gonna have silly stuff happen that's gonna take people's attention. You know, we're gonna talk pathways, you know, at some point, especially if there's money involved, you know, we're from other sources. That's a serious discussion point, all of these things. And then, of course, you have the schools, which are getting busy, and that's not too, that's gonna take up a meeting, essentially, right? I mean, so before you know it, your meetings are limited and time's limited by everybody, so that, you know, for volunteer for the most part here. So just keep that in mind, little bite sizes is my recommendation, easier to deal with, so.
No, the way I see it is you have 22 meetings, and if Westerville takes up 2 of them, you're down to 20 meetings in the entire year. That's not a lot of time when you start looking at this, because by December, we're gonna go, and actually November, December, we don't have any. See, that's 18 meetings to get everything done, and again, you take up a couple with variances, you're.
Amphitheater's gonna suck up several
Yeah,
meetings.
so,
Meetings.
and the way that we have come up with planning and, or the things that we've come up with in zoning is, typically how it works is somebody will complain that this is not what the code says, and that's how we start it. So, I mean, that's how we got to the swimming pool, that's how we've, you know, there's a lot of confusion on signs. We've had some people, you know, disappointed in, you know, what's allowed in your yard, what's not allowed in your yard, how long is it allowed in your yard, that has been an ongoing topic.
Well, bring that sign, well, we need.
But see, told you.
But that could be a good place for everybody to start at, because that code it is long, hard, you know, it's one of the more mind-numbing codes, but it's one that I hear so many complaints about from residents is, it's, you know, the strip malls. You know, our code says that they're only allowed that 10% of the window can be covered with a sign, can only be 10%. They're all got way more than that.
Yep.
And it's,
You know,
and it's,
All right, so,
And it's
Very
really
normal.
what I, you know, the reason I like having more people here is that we get some varying opinions and ideas. That's what I love about this, having more people. And what we have to decide is what we want the rule to be, because for so many years, people have said, well, that's what the code is, and that's what it says, and they don't really think about, what do you really want it to be? And that's what I would like
Right.
to see these discussions start to be, is, you know, there's so many codes that I don't like that have been passed recently, you know, but we'll get into that later.
I'd just like to comment on that. That's one of my issues is, we went over the signs. The sign's done. I know, I just heard in the meeting that you didn't, in the council meeting, you don't like the sidewalk thing. It's been discussed, it's been passed on, it's done, so.
What are you talking about, the sign code?
She
The
just
sign
jumped,
code,
she
yeah,
just jumped
we went
about
over that a
things.
couple
Are
of
you,
years ago.
no, we haven't, we've added some things into the sign code, but the sign code in general, I'm talking about.
So if I may ask, just while we're on this topic in a few minutes, so I heard something about the 10% window thing. Do you want it to be at 10%, do you want more?
That is
Just out of
what I
curiosity.
want us to discuss.
Sure, okay. I just wanted to understand where we're
And
getting to.
that's a fair thing to
because, yeah,
discuss.
I agree with that completely,
well,
so,
because somebody had to take all of their signs down, and it's where I actually get my hair done at the end of the street. And she has actually, I don't wanna call it harassed, but Lynn okay, I shouldn't have said that. Specifically went in there and told her she had to remove every single thing out of her thing, but yet you look 2 doors down and that's not the case.
exactly.
So there were people that were made to remove certain things from there, but if you go through there, not everybody was. And there are places that have been like that for years. And they've never changed it, but it's kind of like the people that were willing to abide by our rules, we forced it on them, but people that weren't, we just kind of let them go. And right now, I will be the first to admit, we don't even have a code enforcement officer, but I'm not just specifically talking about the commercial, and yes, we did just add that block, because I was mad because some of those people had broken, the sign boxes at the commercial, so we have tweaked it a little bit, but I'm not just as concerned, and the commercial down there he is correct about that, we have to do, what are we gonna do, because we're letting some people get away with it, and we are letting some not. But again, the yard signs, I've only said that because I've seen it on Facebook, and my point to addressing the signs right now is a great time to address the signs for the yards, because we don't have any elections going on. So now you have to establish between the political, what's allowed, you know, there's obviously free speech, there's obviously different things like that. I had talked to our last code enforcement officer because some people were told that they weren't allowed, like, there's certain companies that give you 10% off if you advertise their sign in their front yard. So will we allow them to keep it for 7 days or 30 days? Well, if it were me, I think it's fine, but there's some people that may not think it's fine to have them in there. So what's in the code and what was being enforced for some people is different. And I would like to get it straight across the board, because I don't wanna tell certain people that they can have a sign and then their next door neighbor. But right now, everybody's doing whatever they want. Look at everybody's yards. There are advertising signs, there's political, there's free, I'm gonna call them free speech signs. But at what point are we going to say that this, there's commercial free speech, whatever? So it needs
Is that
addressed.
because we don't have somebody enforcing it?
No, it's because, well, again, we get the comment that it's free speech.
So there's two things, if I may
So
jump in.
they're all free speech?
No, if I can jump in on that, let me jump in on that. Anything that deals with a message or that deals with something that's not commercial speech is protected by the First Amendment. No matter what our code says, and it's, most municipalities had this code adopted some years ago and it got struck down, okay? It says you can only have political signs up a certain amount of
30
time before the election and after election. No, that's totally verboten. You can't enforce that, it's illegal. They haven't.
I see,
do
but
it.
that being
Nope.
said,
You
I
do
don't-
it, but you'd be
Nope,
potentially
yeah,
sued.
we would sue, yes. You can't.
And which we don't wanna do.
We cannot, we have no leg to stand on in court, it has been adjudicated, they've decided, we are in the complete wrong if we attempt to do
I
something like
think
that.
you can do that if it's in the right of way.
Two things, our right of way is completely fine, right? It's ours. I'm talking about people's private property.
Up by their
yards,
doors or
okay?
whatever.
Anything within the right of way is not allowed, our code justifies that and dictates it. You can't, cause that's the public's, that's ours, we control that, that's our authority, okay, end of story. Also adjudicated, also ours, okay? Now, those two things aside, you can, if you're very narrow, regulate signs on, even free speech signs a certain way. For example, you can say they have to be kept in, non-tattered condition. They can't turn into a hot mess and be blowing in the wind, essentially, right? So as long as the sign is maintained, in
There's
a
not grass
reasonable
growing
fashion,
up around it.
yeah,
4
it's
feet.
not got algae growing on it, it's not deteriorating, it's fine, you can have language that dictates that, and then we can enforce that, it's a maintenance issue, okay? You can also, under certain circumstances, if you keep it even, because it's very strict on this, but you can keep the signs same size. If you have restrictive code that applies to everyone equally, right? And it can be done to where I can have one size of sign per message, per parcel, right? And I've written code like that in other municipalities, we can do that, so that we don't have somebody that has 10 of the same signs, right? Leads to total, one sign has been shown to be more than enough to get your message out, right? And we usually say per frontage, by the way, 'cause some people have 2 street frontages, so you can have one sign per frontage, because you're able to, it's your forum, it's a public forum essentially, you're spreading your message to your neighbor, it's one of the oldest traditions in American political history, and so it's very well protected by the court. Okay. On that note, commercial speech is a little different, okay? We can regulate commercial speech a lot more than you can regular First Amendment stuff, okay? So, you can choose to allow people to have, a certain size sign, and you can tell them it's okay to have in their yard. Now, I will just tell you from an enforcement standpoint, if somebody has, in your example, hey, I get 10% off for having it out there for a week, by the time you get around to writing a letter,
It's gonna be gone.
and they
Exactly.
send it, they'll yank it at the end of the 7 days. So from an enforcement standpoint, it's kind of goofy, right? So, because they can throw it out there, get their 10% off, and they get their letter, and then they'll pull it at that point. So because there's time frames, notification, and you have a certain amount of time you can get it out of the ground, right? And so these are all good discussion points that people want to see it done and how they want to handle their sign clutter. You could design code that says you can allow 1 commercial or 2 commercial signs or 3 commercial signs per year, not to exceed in any one time more than 1 sign in the yard for a week, right? So that may be okay within a 3x2 or 6 square foot rectangle, whatever you want to call it. So these are things that all can be discussed,
Right.
right? So, anyways, good discussion there.
So I love action items and homework, right? So, Tony, do you want to go through the code for signage
That'd be a good place to start.
And that's all we're gonna look at is signage, and would it make sense to just talk about businesses, right? We're talking about the businesses in Minerva Park that have signage in front of them, we're not gonna touch people's homes right now.
Well,
And you bring us the code, and you bring us the sections that you think are no good. And that will be a place to start the discussion on,
You bring up a good point, because this is one of the things that I would say about our code, is that we don't have a code. Our sign code says it's for businesses, but it's been applied to residential stuff, and I think that's number one, the thing that we've been doing wrong for years.
That's an enforcement thing, so we'll have to see I don't really understand what you're talking about when you
If
say,
you look at the purpose of, if you look at the very beginning of the sign codes, it
Yes.
says that the purpose of this is to provide businesses with standards, I'm paraphrasing.
okay,
And then it goes on and, and that's our sign code.
Okay.
And in my opinion, the purpose of our sign code is just for businesses.
and maybe it very well is.
I haven't been able to get another person to understand.
well, so that's what you're gonna research and put it all together for us.
Alright.
And at a later meeting, bring it to us, and once we've got all the information in front of us, we'll start that discussion. And I think, the signs on people's property is another but much more difficult conversation.
It is.
And so let's start with, it's always fun to accomplish things. If we start with the low-hanging fruit, we can get stuff done.
Cool,
Well, you could take the stance that a friend of mine in her HOA, no signs, period, end of story. The only place you can have them is in your window. I mean,
That's what some,
you're
That's
gonna,
extreme,
you
but-
can't, yeah, you're gonna have,
but that's with the HOA, cause is that,
that's not the same, it's because
I know.
what happens in,
They can get away with it.
We're a government.
We- yeah, we-
The First Amendment
we
says
don't-
that the government cannot stifle your speech.
that's correct, we would have a problem with, it's an interesting thing you're saying, so even if we had code that was equally applied that said no signage whatsoever, I am trying to think back, it's not done, I think, simply because people get smacked down on that.
Well, they could put signs, they just
Yeah.
have to be.
So HOAs,
Yeah, and
Window,
HOA though
window.
is
They derive
a
their-
voluntary agreement.
they derive their authority from the covenants and deed restrictions that you buy into, that you've agreed to when you buy your property. And so legally, you're bound by those, they have to enforce it against you, which they can through lawsuit, right? And that's how that's done. Condo associations, obviously, there's common ground, which is more restrictive, from there, and that's how condo associations you get away with not having anything, necessarily in some cases, flags, which people throw a fit about. You can't even have an American flag necessarily, if the condo association says no, because they're in control of the exterior of the structure as well as the common space, right? So it gets a little different there, but for the government entity, as Brady has so stated, we have to be even-handed and follow the, especially the case law as it is out there. So that's, any signage on residents come from a strict review with legal counsel as well. I mean, there's things that we can talk about, but there's some things you just can't do.
yeah, HOAs, they can control what real estate signs you put out there, like in New Albany,
Yeah.
you have to have the green and white
Because that's a commercial
real
full
estate
sign.
signs.
Yeah,
So we literally would have to, if I listed a house, I have to go buy a different sign.
yeah. Which I think part of that note was a little challenging, but there is something behind that too, so.
Yeah,
Is that just, that's New Albany?
it's certain areas in New Albany, if you drive through there, you'll just see green ones.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing where they have a restriction regarding signage on commercial, or I'm sorry, for residential sales. So because it obviously has some commercial language to it, right? So they can get a little more restrictive on how that's handled.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's an expensive sign.
Well, I know my brother-in-law is a sign guy, and like the red of McDonald's and Wendy's doesn't meet Gahanna's code.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to use their corporate colors, because that's not approved. It's too
Yeah,
bright.
parts of New Albany as well.
Yeah.
Some of those sections, they're not allowed to have,
The
their
really
classic
bright
colors because they don't,
Yeah,
the
they're-
signage doesn't.
But that's the kind of stuff that we need to talk about, is I'm not, and when I bring these things up, it doesn't mean I'm for or against any in particular item. It's just that I would like to have the conversation, do we want to be that community that limits, or, where are we gonna be? And
But
that's,
I'm totally on board, we just need to make sure we're all looking at the same information, so that'll be a good start on that. Staying with new business, the last thing I wanna mention. So we've got these things that we're going to, we're going to discuss, the amphitheater is awesome and inevitable. Green space planning, we're gonna start looking at zoning sections. Is there anything else, and no answers right now, but to the two new members, to the folks who have been here for much longer than that, is there anything else that you guys would like to try and accomplish in this calendar year or move forward that we need to make sure to put on the agenda? And I wanna name the ponds. I think that will make our lives much easier and help with the sense of community a little bit. I want to, and I know Eddie wants to have some talk, and Don, I think as well, about our walking paths and how we can improve those in some way, be they repaving or adding workout stations or, bicycle, repair stations. And then, one of the two ways that we can, that residents can get from Jordan and Park Lane to the rest of the village has been cut off now. And I would like to have some serious conversations about a Jordan connector.
So, yeah, we'll have to, it can be tricky, it can be done, right? So, the village has the ability to, the only way you're gonna accomplish that is you're gonna have to take property through a couple of means. One is not, you can take property for an easement, which is probably your best route, least resistant, least expensive, but it would allow the village to establish an area where they can put down a path. The homeowner will not be happy, regardless of who you choose. However, if it is, and maybe they'll be cooperative. I mean, you offer someone a check, there's ways to settle that, but that's a serious discussion point. The first question is, where do you want the pathway to go, right?
And
Is it reasonable?
This is something that I wanna discuss going forward, and it's probably the most difficult thing on my list anyway. But, I don't wanna just not do something because it's hard.
No, you're right, and it's a reasonable request. It should have been planned out better back in the day, and it wasn't. Now we have to
Absolutely.
now we have to make up for it, so.
When you go home, look at the property directly across the street from the church and between my house and the church, where where the woods are right there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of land between those two, and I don't know who actually owns the woods right there, and I'm interested to find out. But Pat Mangan, which is the attorney, lives on this side, and then it's a brand new resident that lives on the other side.
Okay.
So that would be interesting, not because it's right there for me. And the other discussion has always been right between GFS and Kara's house.
And right, and that seems like low hanging fruit, but it also,
It's coming through the other side.
well, but that's also
You're
like.
talking about towards the Cleveland side though, right?
It is.
So I think what your real goal is to have, you can have one, I think you should have one on both ends.
And that's exactly it, it would be nice, cause that's, by the time I get to that cut through,
You might
my
as well drive
2-year-old is done.
Yeah,
It's good.
And I'm trying to get to the playground, so,
exactly.
yeah, if we make it to your house on a walk, that's a good long walk for us, so.
I mean, in my dream world, I envision something going through the water, to the North Lake.
That's,
In my dream world.
Which
We talked about
that might be the path of least resistance.
well, and we did talk about this, if you recall on one of the maps, that is, as I drew it out for you, that is the path of least resistance because we control all of that.
Right.
And quite frankly, glomming on, yeah.
Riverwalk, you
Yeah.
go down to Gehanna and the Riverwalk, something like that.
Yeah,
glomming on to what you stated about, obviously the capital budget and extending, there's no reason the boardwalk that existed back in the day, you can call it a boardwalk improvement.
that's great,
Yeah,
that's a great thought too. And
So-
the other nice thing about that is
Yep.
that I think one of the houses we would need to negotiate with is John's house.
Yep.
which He seems from the pool, right?
He's on East
You don't
Shore.
wanna go through his yard, just get to my house.
Yeah,
What about John?
no, that's not, no, it's not his.
I think you're talking
There's,
about
is he talking about Joe's?
Joe's, maybe, I don't know, I mean, that's a spot if you
That
go
is,
through.
well, that's the current area.
well, the nice thing is thanks to the shallowness of the lakes, you can sink down pretty quick to get to where you need to be, not to be funny, but it
Yeah.
works to your
Yeah,
advantage to
and
not
we're
have it 8
also-
foot deep right
We're
now.
also talking about doing a major sewer project back there.
Well, and that's what I was
We can
interested
avoid
in,
that.
is that area, well, no, we're saying like if there were some sort of bridge to go, like
Oh, yeah, I see what you're
adding
saying.
into
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But where are the dead ends? That's still, I still don't know whether or not there's a way to get through there where it dead ends.
We can figure
There is, but then it pops out on, you would pop out on, what is that, Wildwood Court, right?
Well, let's look at the map next time, so we can all
Yeah.
Yeah.
plot that out. I think it's a good
But
call.
anyway, that's.
But that is something that's not going away because we have a bunch of Jordan Road residents now, so I'm
Right.
ecstatic.
And it's.
But also is not, you know, what I would like to do is have other folks bring thoughts that they have, that they'd like to address, and then just rank all of these and try
Exactly.
and, you know, rank them not just by how badly we'd like to see them, but by how realistic we think they are. And I would really like to walk and chew gum, you know, and not, you know, be able to hit more than one item in each meeting and actually try and make progress. And then, you know, as I said, the big thing that I'm all about is action items, and so I don't wanna leave any item on an agenda without having a next step. To say we workshopped this in the minutes, without saying we decided to.
Right.
Even if decided to is learn more.
Agreed.
So so your action item, your homework, will be to just try and think about, what you would like to get done this year that maybe we haven't thought about. And that goes for voting and non-voting members.
Cool.
Old business,
Aside from what we talked about, that we're going forward with other things from last year, no?
turning the old business into new business.
Yep.
Does anybody have anything other to say?
It's good to see everyone. Looking
Thanks
forward
for
to a good year.
stepping up.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Like I said, I think, you know, 6 people is a good number. If you get much more than that, then it gets, well, with 6 people, you never know, it might get a little crazy.
Well, when everybody's in agreement, it's either a really, really good idea or a terrible idea.
And technically, you have 8 people. So, which is about the most, quite frankly, the most that they have, or seven-ish is usually in on odd numbers, so I think you'll find it to be a productive group with that number.
We need to move to adjourn?
Yes,
Move to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.